Today, we are excited to welcome Amy Arrighi. Amy has served as the Executive Director of the Regional Income Tax Agency, also known as RITA, since July of 2022. RITA is the Municipal Income Tax Administrator for more than 380 taxing jurisdictions in the state of Ohio. Prior to her appointment as Executive Director, Amy served as RITA's Chief Legal Counsel for 16 years. She is a respected resource and is sought by municipal officials, business organizations, elected officials, and the media for her insight on municipal tax matters and is a frequent presenter at conferences and among municipal tax groups. We are excited to have her today. Please welcome Amy.
Thank you, Rachel, and thanks to the Cleveland Leadership Center for inviting me here to talk today, to talk about municipal income tax, the best tax that we have because we can see it in action every single day. I do give a lot of presentations on municipal income tax, and I was sharing with Rachel earlier, a lot of times I'm doing that to tax practitioners or municipal officials, so I'm really excited to talk to a broader range of individuals who are impacted by Ohio municipal income tax. So I'm going to get right into it and first talk about what this tax is. We're going to treat this like a conversation. So I don't have any slides. I'm going to talk about the municipal tax, what it is, who pays it, what RITA's role is, and then I'm happy to answer your questions when we get to that point. And hopefully by the time we conclude here today, we will have a little bit more understanding about this tax and dispel some myths that are out there about this tax and maybe about RITA. So what is the municipal income tax? So cities and villages in Ohio are authorized to impose an income tax. They get that authority from the Ohio Constitution, and I'm not going to get into too much lawyer stuff here, but that authority comes from the Constitution. The Ohio General Assembly, our legislature, they have the authority to put some guardrails or limits on municipalities in terms of what they can and can't do when they're imposing that tax. So cities and villages impose this income tax. In Northeast Ohio, those tax rates range anywhere from 1%. So the city of Pepper Pike has an income tax rate of 1%. Up to the city of Bedford, city of Parma Heights, they impose a 3% income tax rate. Each community has the authority to determine their own income tax rate. And those rates are determined by their elected officials and their voters based on what meets the needs of their community, the revenue that they need to operate their communities. Because this local income tax, it accounts for anywhere from 70 to 90% of the funds that municipalities use to operate. So everything that we expect them to do, every service that we expect municipalities to provide, police, fire, EMS, all of the related equipment, vehicles, personnel, look out the window the last couple of days, right? The snowplow trucks, the drivers of those trucks, the salt that's being spread by those trucks, the storage of that salt until it's needed. All of those services that we expect cities and villages to provide, they are paying for with the municipal income tax. It is an extremely important source of revenue for them to do all of those things that we expect. Again, the services, the recreation, right? Even cutting the grass at the baseball fields in your community, keeping the soccer fields lined up with the nets, and all of those things that we expect cities and villages to do. The municipal income tax is the revenue that they're using to do those things. And so it is an extremely important revenue source for them as they operate. So that's what the tax is. That's why it's important. But let's talk about who pays this tax. So this tax is paid by people who work and earn income in a municipality that has an income tax. So right now I am sitting in our offices in Brecksville, Ohio. I'm working in Brecksville. I owe income tax to the city of Brecksville on the wages that I earn here. So people who work in a municipality, Their wages are taxed by that municipality. People who live in a municipality, they owe tax to the municipality where they live. I don't live in Brecksville. I live in a different community, so I also pay a municipal income tax where I live, in addition to what I pay here in Brecksville. So we have people who work in a municipality, people who live in a municipality, and then also businesses. Businesses that are operating in cities and villages pay a tax on their income that's derived from the activities that they're performing in those cities and villages. One of the things we hear sometimes from taxpayers is, for myself, I don't live in Brecksville. I work here, I pay tax here, but I don't vote here, right? I don't get to vote in Brecksville. I don't participate in the discussion around what an appropriate tax rate is in Brecksville. So why do I have to pay tax in Brecksville when I don't get the opportunity to vote on that rate? Without like a whole history, like, because the law says you have to, but basically, if you think about it this way, the way that I like to explain that to people is, I'm here in Brecksville. I work here. I don't live here. I live in a different suburb of Cleveland. If I have a medical emergency here in my office and my coworkers pick up the phone and dial 911, the dispatcher in Brecksville is not going to say, well, where does she live? And try and dispatch an ambulance from my home community, right? So when I come to Brecksville and I come here regularly and spend the day here, I am benefiting from the services, from the availability of the emergency personnel, from the roads being plowed, patched, salted, and maintained. So there is a connection between my coming to work in Brecksville, the wages I earn in the city of Brecksville, and the services that the city of Brecksville provides to me as someone who comes here. And so there is that obligation to pay tax, where you're working and also where you're living. So that's kind of the story I like to tell about, your workplace and why you got to pay there too. So municipal income tax, it's important for them to operate. It's paid by the people who work, live, and businesses that operate in those communities. It's the tax that if you walk outside, you can see it in action every single day, just looking around. And that's what, when I talk about the best tax, right, you can actually see it at work just by looking around your communities and the things that your cities and villages are doing. So what is RITA's role in all of this? And the first myth I want to bust is there's no such thing as a RITA tax. We hear that all the time, that people are going to move out of Cuyahoga County so they don't have to pay the RITA tax. So a couple things. There is no RITA tax, and we're everywhere. Like, we're outside of Cuyahoga County too. So what RITA is, we are an administrator. We are a government entity. Our employees pay into PERS. We are audited every year by the Ohio Auditor of State. In fact, our financial reports are on our website, and our CFO would love it if people would go and read our annual audited financial reports. I see her on the Zoom right now smiling at me. So we're a government entity. We're set up as what's called a council of governments, which is basically, under Ohio law, cities can get together and do collectively anything that they could do on their own. So RITA really is an example of shared services between municipalities. We're one of the largest, and in my opinion, one of the most successful examples of shared services between Ohio municipalities, anywhere in the state. So RITA was formed back in 1971 by about 39 communities that recognized that they all had their own individual income tax. They all had to collect it. They all needed to have people to do the work and tax forms to process and computer systems to keep track of all of it. And they recognized that it made much more sense to come together and do that work collectively instead of each community having its own individual tax department and software and people and records retention and billing. Instead of doing that each on their own, they formed RITA, the 39 communities, and over the years we have grown. More and more communities have joined our organization. They recognize the benefit of shared services. We are now serving 395 cities and villages all across the state of Ohio. Our largest community is the city of Hamilton down in Southwest Ohio. They have about 63,000 residents. The smallest community we serve is the village of Octa with 59 residents, also down in Southwest Ohio. And so whether you are the city of Hamilton with 63,000 people or the village of Octa with 59 people, those municipalities all have to do the same basic stuff, right? They have to provide a level of public safety. They have to provide some infrastructure maintenance, capital improvements, some recreation, quality of life things that they provide for their residents and the businesses in their communities. No matter how big or small they are, they all have to do that. And they all rely on the municipal income tax to get those things done. And so by joining with RITA, they get the benefit of shared services and shared costs. So the village of Octa with 59 residents, because they're with RITA, they can offer their residents all of the same services that the city of Hamilton can offer to its 63,000 residents. Electronic filing, 24/7 access to their income tax account, a fully staffed customer service department, compliance measures, all of those things that they could not possibly do on their own to collect this vital revenue, they can do with RITA at a really reduced cost, and really honestly something they could not do on their own with their size. Last year, or 2023 rather, we haven't closed 2024 yet. In 2023, we collected and distributed almost $2.5 billion in municipal income tax for the cities and villages that we serve. And the cost to those cities and villages was less than 1 penny for every dollar that we collected. And so we are able to, because of that shared service model, and as we grow and add more communities to our organization, we're able to do more for those communities at a reduced cost. We're able to do more than for their taxpayers and their residents and their businesses to make meeting their municipal income tax obligations easier by offering more electronic services and really focusing on their taxpayer experience by making it as easy as possible for taxpayers to do what they need to do to meet their municipal tax obligations. And so that's what RITA does. We're not a tax. We're not a private company. We are not a nonprofit organization. We're a government. We provide this service as a shared service among municipalities all over the state of Ohio to help them do what they do best, which is make their cities and villages great places to live, work, and do business. We take care of collecting that revenue that they count on to do those things so that they can focus on what they do best, which is providing those services to all of us. And we're making sure that that revenue is flowing to them so that they can do that work for all of us. That's kind of my short spiel on who RITA is and what we do. The last couple of quick things I'll say right now, some of the things that we're focused on as an organization is doing more to raise awareness with taxpayers, to educate taxpayers. The municipal income tax can sometimes feel a little mysterious, I think, to taxpayers that don't understand what it is, why they have to pay it. Who is this RITA lady and why is she taking my money? So we are trying to do more to get out in front of taxpayers to talk about what the tax is, what it pays for, and what RITA's role is in serving their communities to make sure that that tax is collected efficiently and effectively and as low a cost as we can possibly do for those communities so they can invest more of those tax dollars into the services that they're providing. So we're really focused on that now. That's why I was excited to get this opportunity to spend a few minutes talking about municipal income tax and what we do. And the second thing I'll say we're focused on right now is improving not only taxpayer awareness, but taxpayer experience. So looking at the services that we're offering right now, more electronic services, looking to move towards that, meeting the needs and expectations of taxpayers as those evolve. with taxpayers, new generation of taxpayers coming into the workforce, and making sure that we're ready to meet those needs and expectations for the future with taxpayers. So I could go on for you should give me 2 hours, but I'll stop talking now since we're right at 12:15. We're at the halfway point. Rachel, if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Amy, thank you so much for such a great overview of all of the work your agency does. Can you speak to the process? So you collect the tax from the residents. Can you speak to the process of then distributing those tax dollars back to the municipalities?
Sure. So taxpayers file their tax returns with us. They make their payments with us, and we distribute those funds back to our member municipalities twice a month. Um, as we are collecting and distributing from those communities, we hold a retainer of 3% from everything that we collect. And those are the funds that we operate. So we have personnel and computers, right? All those things that they don't have to do, we're doing. So we hold a 3% retainer. We distribute everything else to our communities twice a month. At the end of every year, as I mentioned earlier, we are audited by the Ohio Auditor of State. Once our actual costs for the year are determined, if we have not, if the actual costs are less than 3%, we refund the difference back to our communities. So as I mentioned earlier, the average cost for our communities in 2023 was less than 1%. So we refunded a lot of retainer money back to our communities at the end of 2023 because we were able to do the work for such a low cost. But we distribute those funds twice a month.
How are employers doing with complying with the withholding rules with the increase in hybrid work? And is RITA auditing employers on this issue or looking more to get them into compliance if the issue comes up?
Yeah, this is a great question. The whole dynamic of work from home and what's been happening with the municipal income tax has been so fascinating for us to watch. What I can tell you is that we have not seen, pardon me, a material, excuse me, a material shift in where municipal income tax dollars are going. A couple of communities as an exception. So what we were seeing are communities, if you think about maybe like the city of Independence, with their population maybe around 8,000 people, but the daytime worker population, tens of thousands of people who would come to those office buildings every single day. And so those were the communities that we were, I guess, worried about what was going to happen if those workers stopped coming to the office. There really weren't enough residents to really make up that revenue. But what we're really seeing is a settling of those trends. We're not seeing any one community. We're not really seeing a widespread impact of communities losing significant amounts of tax dollars. I think what's happening is there are more people going back to the office. Employers are doing a much better job of tracking where their employees are working. And so we're seeing better compliance in terms of hybrid employees and withholding the tax to the correct locations. For RITA, we are hybrid. Our employees are hybrid. It worked for us during COVID, and we've continued that. So we, just like every other employer, we've got to comply with the law and make sure that we're doing the withholding correctly. So we're doing that. We're seeing better compliance from employers. As for auditing, it might become apparent to us that something doesn't look right, and we may reach out to an employer like, hey, what's going on here? Where are your people really working? So it's really just been episodic. If we see something that looks funny, we might reach out to an employer just to understand what's going on and help them. Our goal this whole time has been to help employers comply, because it was a big change for a lot of employers and what they were doing and what they were used to doing. So that's my long-winded way to say employers are doing a good job of getting it right. And we're seeing a settling of that with not a lot of shifting of income tax.
Staying within the lines of thinking about compliance, what happens with late fines that happen when a taxpayer files late, maybe more than once? How does that get kind of forwarded to the city?
So I mentioned earlier that while the cities have the right to have their own tax, the state law tells them some of the rules, right? One of the rules is how much cities and villages can charge for late filing penalties, late payment penalties, and interest. So a lot of times we hear this, the RITA penalty. Well, again, this is all set in state law. There is a penalty for filing a tax return late. That is a $25 penalty. I'll get back to that one in a second. There is a penalty for making a payment late. If you are an individual person, that is a flat 10% of the amount that was due. If you are a business that was supposed to send money that you withheld from employees' paychecks, that a lot higher. It's like 50%. And then there's also interest that the law imposes for things that are late. On the late filing penalty, we just saw a change in that. So right now it's $25 for every return that you file late. It used to be until last year up to $150 for one late form, which is obnoxious, right? So again, but the state law put that $150 penalty in place. So RITA, as an administrator, we administered that penalty, but that has been reduced significantly now down to $25 when you file a return late.
So you mentioned earlier trying to spread awareness of your agency and what you do. So can you talk more about some of the tactics that you are employing to try to elevate your work and change some of the perceptions folks have of RITA?
Sure. So a couple things, just like looking for opportunities like this to get in front of taxpayers, big groups, small groups. We also put in place something that our cities and villages can use, and we call it our member toolkit. And basically, we've created social media posts, examples of PDF documents that I think we actually have to share with all of you about the municipal income tax, about why do I have to make estimated payments and where does this money go. We've created a lot of these awareness materials and then shared them with the 395 cities and villages we work with and are asking them to help us with that, right? Put this on your social media, put this in your water bills, put this in your community newsletters. So getting our municipalities to partner with us to spread awareness. We're also looking at adding some additional information on our website, doing more on social media, Instagram coming soon. So trying to reach more taxpayers where they are to talk about what we do and what their obligations are. So really trying to get our communities engaged with us as well, and raising some awareness around in Central Ohio, there's a lot of building and development going on around Intel and Meta and Google and Amazon and those things that are happening there, and working with those communities and with the construction companies and the developers that are working on those projects to raise awareness with them, so that as they're bringing in these new companies, they understand what their obligations are. So we're really looking at a lot of different touch points to get more in front of taxpayers and reach them where they are and give them the information that they need to comply.
So 395 different municipalities and all varied across the state in terms of their experiences and what's happening in those communities. How do you as an agency kind of really keep track of this and manage all of the varying perspectives they bring to the table?
Yeah, we have, so just from a practical standpoint, we have technology. We rely a lot on technology. We've developed our own in-house tax system that can accommodate all of the different tax rates and credit structures that each municipality has. So we rely a lot on technology to keep things straight between communities. But we also have a department that's dedicated to just working with our member municipalities. So it's our member services department, and we have individuals, we call them government liaisons, and they are assigned to different areas of the state and they work closely. So we have a person down in Southwest Ohio and she works closely with all of our communities down there, keeping track of what's going on in their communities, answering questions that are specific to the things going on in their community. So we identify people internally who are tasked with knowing those communities and being that liaison between those communities by region, so that we're making sure that we're staying in touch with what's happening in our communities, so that we can adjust practices, reporting, and things like that to make sure that we're meeting their needs.
Amy, as you reflect back on your time with RITA over your career, how has the agency evolved and what has kept you engaged with the agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say for evolved, um, this effort that we're doing right now of getting out in front of taxpayers and being more visible in who we are and what we do is a big change from maybe 10 years ago, where we just tried to fly under the radar and just understood everyone hated RITA and it was okay. And we just had to do what we needed to do and just get through it. So that's been a big change here. That's been, the idea of getting in front of taxpayers. We're proud of what we do here, and we should be proud of what we do here. Nobody likes to pay taxes. We get it, but we know that we're providing a vital service for municipalities of every size, every demographic, and so we're proud of that. And so owning that, owning what we do, having pride in what we do, getting out in front of people about what we do, that's been a big change. What keeps me engaged is I'm proud of what we do here, right? I can see it. I see it as a taxpayer. I see it working with these communities and all of the great things that are going on all across the state of Ohio. New businesses coming in, new jobs being created, new taxpayers being brought into the state. And we see ourselves as a partner with not only our municipalities, but with the state of Ohio as well in coming alongside and doing the work that needs to be done to make sure the municipalities are ready to meet the needs of all of this great stuff that's happening in the state. So I get excited about what we do. I'm proud of it. That's what keeps me engaged here. My funny quick story is I actually worked as a paralegal for RITA in the early 90s. It started as a paralegal, started law school at night when I worked here as a paralegal. I went off, practiced law, and had the opportunity to come back as their legal counsel and have been here ever since. And I'm proud of the work that we do and the great people we have that do the work.
So let's look ahead to the next 5 to 10 years. From your perspective as executive director, what is your vision for the agency as you look forward?
My vision, and we talk about this all the time, we want to be the best and top choice for municipal tax collection in Ohio. Municipalities have a choice about how they do the collection of this important tax. We want to be their top choice. I don't know why everybody's not with us. I don't get it, right? So we're working to reach municipalities, show the benefits of this shared service model. So we're focused on growing. We're focused on growing not only as an organization, but expanding the services that we're offering to taxpayers, as I mentioned earlier, meeting the needs and changing needs and expectations of taxpayers as the next generation of workers comes along. I know I have, young, early 20 or in their early 20s, my kids, they don't want to pick up the phone and talk to anybody, right? Like, how do I get my answer online? How do I take care of this over chat? So making sure that we're keeping up with those trends, again, so that we can meet taxpayers where they are, provide a great service to cities and villages in Ohio so that they'll come together with us, join our shared service model, and we can move the state of Ohio forward.
Well, Amy, we are so thankful for you taking the time today to share such important information on something we all have experience with and being able to really help us understand your very important role in our community. So thank you for that.
Thanks so much for having me. Again, you give me like 3 hours. I could keep going, but that's fine.
And we will share Amy's email in the follow-up email along with some resources that she mentioned. So we encourage you, if you want to learn more, please reach out.